The photograph was found in the ashes of a house that burned to the ground 40 years ago, with no survivors. Yet for the past month, neighbors have reported seeing those same two girls playing in the yard every evening at dusk. They describe the scent of ozone hanging in the air, like the moment before a lightning strike, and the sound of their laughter, a high, whispering echo that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. But last Tuesday, a new resident moved into the rebuilt home. On his first night, he woke to the feeling of small, cold hands pressing against his bedroom door from the other side. The wood grew damp and sticky under those invisible palms, and a voice, twin synchronized and ancient, whispered through the keyhole, "We want our cake." This is the story of the birthday party that never ended, and the guests who are always waiting for you to blow out the candles. What if every memory you've ever trusted was a fabrication? The camera focuses on one photo. Two teenage girls, identical twins. But one face is eerily translucent, a ghostly double exposure within the frame. My twin sister, Emily, disappeared last year. The authorities dismissed it as a runaway case. I dismissed it as a nightmare, but then I discovered her photographs. The air in the room grew thick, carrying the faint, metallic scent of old paper and something else, something stagnant. My fingers grew cold and clumsy against the photograph's slick, aged surface. And in the third image, a family portrait. The dread solidified into a cold, undeniable weight in my chest. A man, a woman, a young girl, and a chilling void beside her, where the twin should have been. That empty space is a precise, surgical excision from the picture itself. And in that moment, the evidence became undeniable. She was never real. A violent, distorted camera shutter cracks through the air, and the world plunges into black. The name's Lily Carter. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I had a twin sister named Rose. One autumn morning, Rose vanished without a trace. The photos she left behind hold a secret that unstitches my reality. For 24 years, I was one half of a whole, Emily and Lily. Lily and Emily. That's how everyone knew us. We moved through life as a single entity. Two voices harmonizing into one story. But that unity carried a scent of ozone and damp earth, a premonition buried deep. It was a bond that felt less like love and more like a shared, silent dread. We shared a room, our secrets, even a face. Robert and Diane, our parents, doted on us equally, or so I believed. Then came the whispers, barely audible, but laced with ozone and rot that clung to the air like a damp chill. Their touch, once warm, grew cold and sticky, leaving me frozen in place. That's when the first crack appeared in the perfect family portrait they'd painted for us. Emily was my spark, my voice when shyness stole my words. I was the planner, tracing every step while she leaped. Our bond was a perfect, fragile symmetry. We were perfectly balanced. Our childhood was a storybook with twin heroines. Dad was our world. Robert, a brilliant architect with a smile that could warm the coldest room. But beneath that perfect surface, a quiet dread began to settle. The air in our home grew thick, carrying the faint, metallic scent of ozone before a storm. Our mother had always been the perfect homemaker, the heart of our all-American family. But after our father's sudden death in a car accident when we were 16, something fundamental shifted within her. The vibrant woman we knew seemed to hollow out, her spirit growing fragile and brittle. A profound distance settled in her eyes, a chasm where warmth used to live. Emily began to withdraw, a gradual retreat that felt like a slow leak in the heart of their home. Her need for space became a tangible, suffocating presence, thick as the dust in the air. Behind that door, muffled arguments became a low, persistent drone, a sound of fraying threads. Each muted word carried the faint, metallic scent of something rusting from the inside out. I started staying out late, missing family dinners. Mom would just stare out the kitchen window, whispering to herself. The air in our home grew thick with ozone and unspoken grief. I felt the unit we once were cracking, and I blamed that grief. I told myself we'd find our way back. A year ago, Lily's phone screen glowed in the dark. A single text from Emily appeared. Need to figure things out. The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of ozone and the faint, metallic tang of old fear. Then, one morning, she was just gone. No note, just that chilling text. Don't look for me. I love you. Her closet stood half empty, the scent of her perfume lingering like a ghost. The air grew heavy with the cold dread of abandonment. Her toothbrush was missing from the holder, leaving a stark, empty space where it should have been. Her backpack, usually slumped by the door, had vanished along with her. Everything pointed to a teenage runaway, a story so common it felt scripted. But as the first officer at the scene jotted his notes, the air in the room grew thick and stale, carrying the faint, metallic scent of something wrong. Lily sat hunched across from the weary detective, her face pale and drawn. The detective leaned forward, his voice low and exhausted. "Miss Carter," he began, "we've scoured bus stations, traced credit cards, questioned every friend. There's no digital footprint, no trail, nothing." He let the words hang in the heavy air. "It's like she just vanished into thin air. Your mother's statement was inconsistent." Lily's voiceover reveals the unsettling truth. Mom was a wreck, but in a strange way. She wasn't frantic. She was resigned. That quiet acceptance was more terrifying than any panic. She kept repeating, "I always knew she'd leave. Never. We'll find her." Just that grim certainty. Months later, in the attic of their Ohio home, Lily opened a floral-patterned cardboard box labeled Girls' Memories. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten things. Lily's voiceover cut through the stillness. The case went cold. Life became a fog. Then, last week, Mom asked me to clear out the attic, and I found it. The memory box from our childhood. A close-up on Lily's hands pulling out photos. Her smile faltered, then vanished completely. Lily's voiceover cut through the quiet, laced with melancholy. "It started as simple nostalgia," she whispered. "Memories of us at the zoo, us at Christmas. But then, I looked closer. The photos flickered on screen, each one revealing subtle anomalies highlighted with cold, digital circles. In this one, from my 8th birthday, Emily's hand rested on my shoulder, but her fingers were slightly transparent. At the time, I dismissed it as just a smudge on the lens, a simple photographic flaw. In our school play footage, she's there in the background, but her face is smeared into a blur, while everyone else remains perfectly clear, as if the camera shuddered just for her." Then, a later photo. Teenage Lily at the beach, building a sandcastle alone, but pressed into the sand beside her is the distinct, deep imprint of another body, one that has clearly been digitally erased from the frame. Her voice trembles on the recording, raw and hollow. "This one broke me. I remember that day with perfect, painful clarity. I remember her standing there beside me. The air smelled of salt and damp earth as we buried our father's watch deep inside that sandcastle. It was a stupid, childish ritual we didn't understand. We just knew we had to do it. But in this photo, I'm alone. Mom, what is this? Why does Emily look like a ghost in all our pictures?" Diane, her gaze still fixed elsewhere, murmured, "Old cameras, sweetheart. They were never reliable." Lily's voice trembled as she pointed to the photo. "And this? The beach?" A metallic scent, like old film and ozone, hung in the air between them. The damp chill of the room seemed to seep into their bones as they stared at the image. "Where is she?" Diane finally stilled, her back to Lily as she slowly dried her hands. The damp towel hung limp in her grip, the air thick with the scent of old soap and something metallic. Diane's voice was a quiet rasp, barely above a whisper. "Diane, you were always such an imaginative child. You needed a friend." The floor seemed to dissolve beneath me, plunging me into a void of disbelief. I scrambled through the house, my movements fueled by raw, frantic desperation. The air in my father's old study was thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten dust. My focus locked onto the metal filing cabinet, its surface cold and unyielding to my touch. The document lay open on the desk, a stark white page in the dim light. A clinical chill seeped from the paper, carrying the faint, sterile scent of ink and old filing cabinets. The age, 7, was typed in bold, a simple number that felt heavier than the rest of the page. This was not just a record. It was the first page of a story no one wanted to finish reading. The official diagnosis read, "Prolonged grief reaction following neonatal loss of twin." The recommended treatment was chilling, encouragement of an imaginary companion to externalize the trauma. Lily's voiceover came as a shattered whisper, the truth finally breaking through a lifetime of denial. "Neonatal loss," she breathed, the sterile medical term tasting like ash. "My twin died at birth." Then, the final, devastating admission, spoken not in horror, but in a numb, hollow realization. Emily never existed. The climax hits with frantic, disjointed flashes. Lily's voice cracks, a raw, hysterical whisper over the chaos. She can still smell the ghost of strawberry shampoo in the stale air. "But I remember her." Quote, she sobs, the certainty a sharp, lonely ache against the crushing void of proof. "The time she shattered her arm tumbling from the ancient oak tree. How could a ghost possibly fracture bone?" Cut to Lily, her face a mask of pale resolve, gripping the steering wheel as she navigates the lonely night roads. Her destination looms into view. A small, dilapidated apartment building, its windows dark like hollow eyes. The air here carries the faint, metallic scent of old rain on concrete and something else, a stale, forgotten decay. Her fist hammered against the weathered door, each impact echoing through the still corridor. An older man, Mike, a former colleague of her father's, answered, his face a mask of weary recognition. The air carried the faint, metallic scent of old iron. Lily's voice was a raw whisper, stripped of all but necessity. "Mike, you knew my father. Tell me the truth." Mike, worn and weary, sighed deeply before letting her in. His voice carried the weight of decades as he began. "Your father adored you when you were small," he continued, the air growing thick with memory. "You would have conversations with an empty chair. You called her, Millie, in your grief. And they pretended to understand your pain, but it wasn't understanding. It was a cruel game. Played along?" Lily's voice was a whisper of disbelief. "They bought the extra seat at the movies," Mike replied, his words hanging in the damp, heavy air like a confession. "The extra Happy Meal sat untouched. its vibrant colors a stark contrast to the empty space they spoke to. Their words were meant for you, a ritual performed into the quiet. But as he grew older, Robert's concern became a palpable weight in the air. He began to notice the faint, metallic scent that lingered after the whispers ceased. He told me once, "It's not healthy. We have to help her let go." But then he died. And Diane, she couldn't. She lost a husband and, in her mind, she couldn't lose another daughter, so they sustained her. For me, my grief created her, and their devotion gave her a body. But after Dad passed, Mom couldn't maintain the charade alone. The pretense began to fray, revealing the hollow space beneath. The air in our home grew thick with the scent of forgotten things, and the palpable weight of a shared, crumbling lie. The photos, those clumsy edits, the deliberate fading, that was Mom desperately trying to maintain a fiction. Emily's disappearance was simply Mom finally letting the lie collapse in on itself. Now, Lily sits in her bedroom, surrounded by the hollow evidence of a life that never truly existed. The air carries the faint, metallic scent of old ink, and the crushing weight of a truth she can no longer deny. Lily clutches the family portrait, her finger tracing the empty space where a sister should have been. Her voice comes hollow, stripped of all hope. The police never found her because there was no one to find. My sister was a shared delusion, a beautiful, painful ghost story, written by a grieving family. The final photo cuts to black, leaving only the scent of old paper and the echo of a lie everyone chose to believe. 10-year-old Lily smiled at the camera, clutching a drawing while the couch cushion beside her sank under an invisible weight. Now, decades later, that same question still claws at her whenever she faces her reflection. The air in the room grows thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic, and in the heavy quiet, she can almost feel a cold, damp pressure against her shoulder, just like that day on the couch. She stares, unblinking, into the lens, the question hanging in the air like a physical weight. If the person I loved was never real, who have I been speaking to all these years? When a memory feels that solid, that achingly warm, does its origin even matter? Her voice drops to a whisper, a secret shared with the void. Where does a ghost of the mind go when it finally fades? The photograph's final detail came into focus. It was a child's crayon drawing of two identical stick figure girls. One figure was filled with vibrant, almost aggressive color. The other was merely a faint, careful outline, a ghost beside its twin. The screen held for a moment, then dissolved into absolute blackness. In the void, a faint scent of ozone and damp earth seeped into the air. A sticky, unnatural cold pressed against the skin, raising goosebumps. Then, from the impenetrable dark, came the soft, wet sound of something dragging itself closer.